As we have learned before, consonants are classified based on the places of articulation as well as the manner of articulation, the state of the vocal folds, and in some other terms. So, previously in that lesson, based on the places of articulation, we got to know about the different places or different speech organs from where these sounds are articulated, these consonants are articulated. But in this video, we will be talking about the way we pronounce these sounds. I mean, how the difference in the manner of pronunciation makes those different sounds. Different manners of pronouncing sounds make the distinction between, as you know, the voiced and the voiceless sounds, aspirated or unaspirated sounds, or as we are going to discuss, stops or fricative sounds. So, degree of constriction, the nature of the airflow, and most importantly, the behavior of the speech organs. All these things matter in deciding the manner of articulation. So, for pronouncing stop sounds, which is our first category, or the plosive sounds, complete closure of the articulators is needed. This complete closure, which means no leakage of air during closure, is needed for stop sounds. And if the closure or if it is partial or if there is any kind of leakage of air, then it won't be a stop sound. Stop sounds are also called plosives. Stops can be divided into two types based on the release, oral and nasal stops. So for oral stops, the sound comes out of the mouth with a small burst of sound, a small burst of air. Because before that, the nasal tract gets completely blocked, obstructing the airstream totally. In that way, the pressure builds up in the mouth and the oral stop is formed. Pa, ba, ka, these are oral stop sounds. For example, to pronounce these sounds, the words pan, pat, kid, pen, etc. The stop sound is formed inside our mouth and then comes out with a little burst. Then let's talk about the nasal stops. So, the nasal stops are the sounds pronounced with a burst of air coming out of the nasal tract, or an easy way to say, comes out of the nose. As in this process, the air stopped in the oral cavity. It gets stopped in the oral cavity, but then the soft palate gets down and the sound comes out of our nose. The way the soft palate is lowered, it is called the velic opening. And that is what makes all the differences between oral and nasal stops. These are the figures. In this figure, this is for oral stop. We can see the position of the vocal organ while pronouncing b, the bilabial stop in the word by. And then in this figure, we can see the position of the vocal organs, all the speech organs, while pronouncing ma, the bilabial nasal sound in the word my. From these two pictures, we can clearly see the only difference here is in the velic area. As for the nasal stops, it is open, and for the oral stops, it was closed. Usually in phonetics, we use the term stop to refer to oral stops and the term nasal to mean nasal sounds like ma or na or wa. So if we try to say in simple words, the oral stop come out of our mouth with small burst of air, and for the nasal sounds, that air can be released through our nose. So for fricative sounds, after stop sounds, we'll be discussing fricative sounds. Fricative is that category of consonants under which comes the sound sa, fa, z, etc. When you pronounce a fricative consonant, it produces a hissing sound. Because the distance between the close and active articulator, it becomes too close and that makes the airstream partially obstructed, making the airflow turbulent which comes out. The process is called approximation of two articulators. So based on the degree of obstruction, we can see that where there is a complete closure between the two articulators, the stop sounds are produced, and when the articulators is not completely obstructed, producing a hissing sound. Here, if we look properly, we can see the difference between stops and fricative in the mark points. One of the mark points shows the narrowing alveolar ridge and the other one shows the positions of the articulators. This figure shows the position of the vocal organs while pronouncing sh sound, which is a palato-alveolar fricative. In this figure, we can clearly notice the narrowing of the vocal tract between the tongue blade and the back part of the alveolar ridge. And then for laterals, the special feature of lateral sounds is that to produce these sounds, tongue plays the main role. The airstream is obstructed near the oral tract but don't get a complete closure between one or the both of the sides of the tongue and the roof of the mouth. In this way, the sound manages to flow out freely over the side of the tongue, in spite of the closure formed by the tongue. In English, la is an example of lateral sounds. If we pronounce la and prolong the initial sound, then we realize how there is no stoppage of the air, nor is there any sign of fricative sounds. These kind of sounds are also called lateral approximants. In approximants, the focal tract doesn't get narrow enough to produce a turbulent airstreams, and thus the sound is produced neither as a fricative nor as a vowel. Semivowels and other types of approximants, just like lateral approximants, belong to this category of sounds as well. Semivowels like Y or W in yacht or we are approximant for their vowel-like behavior in acoustic and articulatory properties, but consonant-like behavior in their transition. And for affricate sounds are considered to be the amalgamation of stop sounds and fricative sounds. This sound starts its journey like a stop or plosive, but cannot be held for enough duration and is released slowly with a slightly hissing sound. Thus, affricates are stops immediately followed by fricatives. The English word church has two affricates, one at its beginning and the other one at its ending. The sound is ch.